I started the Ginger Engine, one of the things that I did was make sure that I got on to the Thomas and Friends community Facebook groups. It's a way to engage with like-minded people who love Thomas and Friends as much as I did, and they can present their own questions and theories, which can also give me inspiration for videos. One such question was posted to the Facebook group, asking which was the best version of the Steam team. It wasn't the whitewash that a lot of people were expecting, as there was a lot of different answers. So I thought I'd do my own little video on the iterations of the Steam team and ultimately who I think is the best. Before I start, I just want to make clear that this isn't a full, thought-provoking, analytical video. I will present you with all the iterations of the Steam team, talking a little bit about them, and ultimately who my favourite is. So let's start with the version of the Steam team that started it all, the 8 famous engines. That's what they were called in their original Railway series book guys, not the Steam team. The members consisted of Thomas, Edward, Henry, Gordon, James, Percy, Toby, and Duck. They were called the 8 famous engines because that was the title of this book of the Railway series. In the story, the Fat Controller's engines, they are invited to England as they have heard about these engines in storybooks. Yes, that's right, the Railway series existed within its own universe. We talk about multiverses in superhero genre. Railway series was doing that way before this. So the Fat Controller brings his 8 famous engines over for the public to see. The Railway series was not based around one certain character. Yes, the second book with Thomas in it gave it more exposure, but he never started it. And the Railway series itself was about an ensemble of engines, road vehicles, etc. Not just one protagonist. The engines that the public gravitated to were the 8 famous engines that I have mentioned. Originally, this was meant to be the end of the Railway series books. But popularity, a demand for more stories, and the fact that Audrey could write more stories kept it going. And every fan is so glad they did. But that takes us away from the books and into the TV series. In the first season, the unofficial dub of the Steam team consisted of 7 engines. Thomas, Edward, Henry, Gordon, James, Percy, and Toby, as Duck didn't arrive until season 2. But even then, he didn't really form this unofficial Steam team. It was never called the Steam team at the time, but if you look at the classic seasons of Thomas and Friends, seasons 1 to 7, those 7 were the core that audiences gravitated to. Yes, Duck flitted in and out, but he did have his own little western gang, and that just seemed to be the way it was for those first 7 seasons. And then, Hit Entertainment took over, and this is when the Steam team officially became a thing. It's also when Tidmouth Sheds became the official home base for the Steam team. In the classic era, Tidmouth Sheds was just another shed. There wouldn't always be your main Steam team residing in those berths. It would just be whatever engines had been working nearest and had to go there for a rest. But when the soft reboot happened, Tidmouth Sheds became the official shed of all the main characters. These included the 7 previously mentioned engines, and at first, Duck was meant to be part of this Steam team. And it made sense calling back to the Railway series books and the 8 famous engines. But there was an issue, and I think you've probably guessed from watching the video up to this point. Where's the women at? There were no female characters in the Steam team. Yes, there were female characters in the show and in the Railway series books, but never officially made a main character. It's another one of the reasons why Thomas was considered a sexist show. A video that I am putting off more and more every day. It is a very daunting subject to touch on. But there wasn't an established female presence, and considering they had introduced the character of Emily in season 7 and gave her some exposure, they bedded her in to form the Steam team proper. And that was the way it stayed until season 22 in the Big World, Big Adventures era, not so affectionately dubbed as BWBA. The Steam team had a major shake-up, with 2 of the main characters, Edward and Henry, being written out, and 2 new female engines, Nia and Rebecca, being added. There is a lot of controversy as to why these 2 engines were added. On the one side, you will hear people saying, the woke brigade added these underdeveloped female characters for wokeness and diversity. The other side will say, while they don't have the most development, it was necessary for diverse characters to be added to the main roster to combat the sexist and racist nature of Thomas and Friends. I am not making my comments on whether this was the right decision or the wrong decision. There are plenty of creators that have done that in my stead, and a lot better than I could do. I may touch on it one day, but not right now. But that was the official Steam team until the franchise stopped in Season 24. I do not count All Engines Go, it is classed as a reboot. So, which version of the Steam team do I think is the best? You may think, looking at the background of this video, that I am going to say the 8 famous engines. While they are the ones that started it all, and I do have a soft spot for them, I wouldn't say they're my favourite. I love the classic era Steam team, but again, I do feel a little bit sad that there wasn't female representation. We jump to BWBA. I respect that there is diversity and inclusion, but I do think the way they handled it was a little bit fumbled. There was potential, it was a little bit squandered. When I get round to reviewing the BWBA era of Thomas and Friends, I can probably go into more detail then. So you might be surprised that the Steam team and its official guys, with Emily included, is my favourite, but not the Hit era version and not the Nitrogen era version. My favourite is the Brenner era, seasons 17 to 21. When I cover the Brenner era of Thomas and Friends in my ranking videos, I'll probably go into more detail as to why this is my favourite iteration, but I'll give you the bullet points. They did try and include more female characters. They did treat the female characters with respect. They treated the main characters with respect. They didn't get rid of 2 of the established male characters just to incorporate the demand from outside sources. They naturally integrated female characters into the show. Emily had been established. In season 21, they looked like they were going to make Rosie a prominent member, and they were developing female characters out with the Steam team, such as Mavis, Daisy, and others. But that core Steam team from the Brenner era was done very well. They were handled with respect, and I did not expect them to be my favourite, but they are. This is a very hot issue. Normally I would switch comments off for this, but I do want to know what your thoughts are. Who had the best iteration of the Steam team? All I ask is that when you comment below, make sure to keep the comments respectful, please. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep on jugging.